If you're someone who doesn't have a lot of time to practice every day, here's a great exercise to work on 3 separate things simultaneously. We're going to use this one exercise to work on our technique and warm up our fingers, get more familiar with chord theory within a key, and also connect our way across the fretboard, getting more familiar with our scales. So as I said, this exercise works on 3 different things simultaneously. One, it makes for a great alternate picking warm-up exercise. You do want to strictly alternate pick your way through this entire thing, even while going down multiple strings using the arpeggios. And for your fretting hand technique, with some of these arpeggios, you have to practice rolling your finger so that you're not getting a lot of bleed through the notes. If you were to practice with distortion, that would get really noisy, and you want to try to avoid that. Rhythmically, you want to keep all of the notes consistent, so you're aiming for basically all 16th notes other than our accent notes at the end of the phrase. So this is great to practice with a metronome to test your consistency. Second, we're using this exercise to get familiar with our diatonic chords within a key. This is a fun way of practicing something like this instead of just a pure theory approach. It's always better to put it on the fretboard and use it on the guitar. It really helps connect the dots and have it click for you. So this exercise is basically a sequence through the diatonic chords in E minor, starting with E minor. So E minor to D, to C, to B minor, A minor, G major, and then we have F sharp diminished back to E. The great thing with this is that sequence of chords within a minor key never changes. So if you were to take this and move it to F minor or G minor or A minor, that sequence never changes. It would be minor, major, major, minor, minor, major, diminished, going backwards in that order. A lot of the times with theory of putting chords on the fretboard or your scales on the fretboard, I do suggest at first just to treat it as an exercise and commit it to muscle memory and get your fingers knowing where to go before a deep analysis of the theory, so that you're not kind of tripping over yourself trying to play it, but you already know where to go, and then you can kind of analyze it further afterwards. And last but not least, the third thing that we're practicing with this exercise, which most guitar players have a lot of trouble with, is connecting the dots across the fretboard and knowing our scales. So the nice thing in this exercise is after the arpeggio, we're doing a little bit of a scale sequence in that position. And then in the next arpeggio, so we're using our 3-note per string shapes, but you notice that we're only sticking to the high E and the B string. So instead of trying to practice or get familiar with your scales from the 1st string to the 6th string in all different positions, that can be very overwhelming at first and just give you almost too much to use. So it's better to use just kind of bite-sized chunks of your scale and get familiar with the entire key across the 2 strings. It's a lot easier to commit to memory and to understand the shapes. A lot of them also are symmetrical, so it's actually quite easy to memorize. And again, you just want to commit this to muscle memory and get it to the point where then you can start to improvise through these shapes and not have to think about where to go next. Your fingers just know where to go from practicing these shapes over and over. So you can even get rid of the phrase or sequence that I'm using and just practice the 6-note patterns in each position descending down the fretboard. And again, like our diatonic chords, that order doesn't change. So if we move that up to F sharp minor, 2 frets higher, the shapes and the positions stay the exact same. And that's why when you see guitar players like Joe Satriani or Steve Vai kind of flying around the fretboard, that's actually when they're thinking the least, because they've just committed their scale shapes to memory so well that they don't even have to think about where to go from position to position. And that's what you want to try to achieve, is just get so familiar with that order so that you can play it without having to think, and your fingers just know where to go. And then you can start to look at it melodically and from a theory perspective. So once you get familiar with this exercise, I would suggest trying to move it into different keys. It can be quite confusing at first when you get used to an exercise in a certain spot on the fretboard, and then having to move it only 1 or 2 frets away can be a little bit confusing at first, just seeing the notes land on different frets and different dots on the fretboard. So try to take the exercise and move it into F minor or G minor and then maybe A minor, and see how well you do connecting the dots in that key. You can download the full tabs of all the demonstrations that I'm doing in this video on my Patreon, where I also post many more lesson videos exactly like this one. So definitely check it out, and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial to check out all the lessons that I post. And if you're interested, I'm also launching this new t-shirt in my merch store here, Practice Equals Progress. I've never liked the saying practice makes perfect, because I don't think there is such thing as perfect when you're playing the guitar. You can always get better, you can always improve a little bit, and that should be the goal when you're practicing week to week, month to month, is just to get a little bit better time after time. And if you keep that as a goal, you can really make huge strides in a short period of time without having to concern yourself with the idea of perfection. So make sure to check it out at the link below. Let me know what you guys think in the comments if you found this video helpful. I love to teach. That's what I do every single day. So I'm happy to post more videos like this if you guys enjoyed it. And you can check out the Patreon page for many more lesson videos like this. Thanks guys, and keep up the practice.